I joined NPM to really bring new therapies forward for patients and had the opportunity to do that as a partner with NPM for about a decade. I think Luke underemphasized the importance that that was the first biotech focused fund, having invested in now hundreds of companies with more than 50 therapies approved by the FDA and companies that NPM has worked on. And I was lucky enough to ultimately leave my investing role to found and lead a company as a CEO, take it public, one of the 50 companies that, NPM has taken public over the last couple of decades. That was a very successful sort of life-changing outcome for me. And I didn't know what I was going to do with my life at that point. Worked with NPM on a company in Munich to chair an immuno-oncology company when I met the other person who called me Sean Doherty, who had this vision that he already outlined. And I thought, wow, that is really cool. And I had missed the role that foundations could play and what they could bring to the table. And so I joined Sean's vision to implement the idea of how can we access the network and capabilities that these large foundations have built up over decades by funding researchers who, by the way, are also running clinical trials. And how could we bring them into the mix? And as the part of that, how could we bring the families into the mix, which was something very new from a venture capitalist. It's sort of an anonymous pension foundation endowment fundraising gig. But Sean had raised ultimately $100 million from 100 families who shared the mission of they were going to give money to the foundation to participate in that area between research and commercialization to fund the biotech companies that were translating all of that science into therapies. And so, Sean, you recruited me to implement that vision. We did it with, passion. We ultimately invested in 46 companies. They always had to have a type 1 diabetes program, but they can be more focused more broadly in other indications, which I think was a strength. But we wanted to help them with their T1D program. And so the mission was to put in equity alongside the investors and help the company succeed, whatever that meant. I mean, whatever resources we could bring to bear, we would take a seat at the table. We were a fraction of the money that was raised. Our goal was to invest as little money as possible and find other VCs like MPM to come in and provide the majority of the capital, but we were aligned with them. And all of that money went back into the fund. And that was the model that we took off on. So I just think that was an incredible model that opened my eyes, the idea of doing it with a professional team. We set up a separate team in Boston that I led, recruited,